Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. If, instead of rebooting movies, it became a trend to retell them from a different character's perspective, what film would you want to see retold and from whose point of view? Hot Fuzz, but from the perspective of the neighborhood watch. From the perspective of the Swan. Willy Wonka from the point of view of an Oompa Loompa who is working to ignite a slave rebellion amongst his people. Oompa Loompa Doopity Dad sees the means of production. Comrades. Oompa Loompa Doobity Doo, who benefits from the labor we do. We organized to vouch for our few, then Willy candied the head of our crew. We still live and work for him too. Solidarity's our only way through. Oompa Loompa Doobity Dee, fight the man so someday we're free. Mean Girls, as told by Regina George. This could also go dark. Her home life was obviously messed up. What was growing up in that household like? Imagine Regina flashbacks. Have you felt her mom's boobs? They're hard as rocks. Janice Ian psychologically fricks with someone who just moved in by making them pretend to be friends with someone and is then presented as the good person for being mad that Katie actually made friends with that person who she was instructed to be friendly with when she has literally no one else to talk to in new school. Not really related the point, but still. And then she gets to be hurt because Katie betrayed her. Like damn, Janice, you are manipulative and not the good guy here. I thought the point of Mean Girls was that all of them were mean and nitty. While trying to stop the mean girls, Janice and Katie become them. Frozone. Where was his super suit? Frozone and his wife as a romantic comedy. Is she super? Is she ordinary? Does that make the least difference to her? Just keep the gag of never showing her on screen, but still make the entire movie cantered around her. Forrest Gump from Jenny's perspective. That would be so depressing, but would probably be such a sweet portrayal of Forrest's pure love to her in contrast to all the other it she has to go through, and we will get a good inner dialogue of how she finds it difficult to respond to that emotion for most of her life. From Johnson's perspective. So basically it's a biopic of LBJ, but in the middle of it some autistic guy tells him about getting shot in the ass. John Wick would become a horror film. There's a couple scenes where he just comes off as this horrible unstoppable machine. A whole movie of that would be wild. Foot soldiers pissing themselves because they know Wick is gonna murk them, but they have no option but to die fighting. I still like the part where he talks to the one bodyguard casually then ends it with why don't you take the night off and they reply I think I will. He knows exactly what is about to go down and he just nopes the frick out without hesitation. Francis. He even says thank you, Mr. Wick before he takes out his earpiece and leaves. Man, that whole universe is just so built. Atmospheric as frick. Matrix. But from the perspective of a regular police detective trying to stop the murder spree of these crazy people who kill everybody without reason. At one point he would interrogate Neo. So you believe that nothing is real? That's why you can kill random people? Because they don't exist? No. The world is fake, but the people are real. And you kill them anyway? That sounds like it could be exceptionally fun if the cop in question begins to learn to bend the rules of the Matrix. He is exposed to enough of the rebels' antics to believe and seek out the truth and how to experience it, but still decidedly falls on the side of people still living in the system, defending the innocents who are callously overlooked in this high-level war. They mostly get their ass kicked, but manage to save just enough people, just enough of the time, to maintain a morale and sense of purpose. Later on, the Smith virus takes hold and they desperately try to create a hidden community in this world, meant to parallel the rebels' colony in the real world, and just as that begins to hopelessly fall in upon itself, the final fight ensues upon Neo's return. Jurassic Park Lost World, except from Ingen's perspective. Jurassic Park from the Velociraptors' perspective. He's right. I am a clever girl, Alan. Mulan from Captain Li Shang's point of view. He starts having feelings for one of his soldiers, thinking he's gay. Then he finds out that Ping is actually a girl in disguise. Good news, I'm not gay. Bad news, I'm supposed to chop her head off. There is a Chinese story similar to this called Butterfly Lovers and there is an old musical version of it. It's a Wonderful Life from Mary, the wife's point of view. Married to a dreamer with fits of depression, while raising 4 kids, rebuilding a beautiful old Victoria house, helping him make his dream passion of helping his community come true and trying to protect him from his loser uncle, all while watching him spiral into a deeper and deeper depression. Will she be able to help him out of it? Absolutely, she can help him out of it. I'd almost argue that Mary is the most important character in that movie. She drives a large amount of the action. Who declares marriage at the age of like 8? Mary. Who offers their honeymoon money to save the bank? Mary. Who goes around asking neighbors and friends for help against the feds when George goes missing? Mary. She's the best. Not to mention buying an old house and fixing it up while having 4 kids underfoot and helping all the working class neighbors move into their new homes. Dealing with a mother who obviously didn't like her choice in husbands and constantly being an optimist. Movie should have been called It's a Wonderful Wife. I get a little ticked at George every time he goes up the stairs and gets pissy, because she hasn't gotten around to fixing the banister yet. Ender's Shadow did this exact thing with Ender's Game. Done by the original author, no less. And it is brilliant. The whole Shadow series is seriously one of the best stories I've ever read. Series? I know only the first book. You're saying there were more? Or are you referring to the Speaker for the Dead stuff? Dude, the Shadows series is a must read. Imagine if at one time in history, Alexander of Macedonia, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Shaka Zulu, Caesar, Hitler, and Sun Tzu were all duking it out. So a game of Civ basically? Lord of the Rings trilogy from Sauron's perspective. Your order has been dispatched. Unfortunately, it is delayed due to being misplaced in transit. Your order is out for delivery. Please be in between the hours of November and January to sign for your package. Your delivery has been placed in a safe place. Despite being home, I did not hear the bell, and oh no. It's been tossed over the back wall and ended up in my pond. Lord of the Rings from Tom Bombadil's perspective. Just a 3-part trilogy of a dude in the woods playing with squirrels and picking flowers for his forest lady friend. The Matrix from Agent Smith's view. Constantly trying to quell the stupid human insurrection. I was going to say The Matrix from Morpheus's point of view. The prequel being how he learns of the One and getting his band of folks to find Neo. I'd actually like to see The Matrix from Cypher's point of view. The path that leads his bitterness and resentment to betray everyone. Obviously the climax of the film being his failure and death. I dig how you used spoiler font for a 20-year-old movie. People complain about Titanic spoilers. And Apollo 13. Please don't say anything else. I'm only on Apollo 11 and I didn't know they'd make it to 13. Toy Story. Andy, a young boy who enjoys playing with his toys in his spare time, often wanders into his room to find things off. Something may have moved, a toy may have vanished only to reappear the next day. Voices are heard from his room from the ground floor only to hear a slight panic then silence whenever he approaches the room again. And imagine, one day, if he heard this talking once again only to walk into his room, hear the split-second shock to silence just to see his favorite cowboy toy laying on the floor. Only this time, just before he laid his eyes on the toy, he could see in the corner of his eye the left hand of Woody just slightly flop to the ground. Flop to the ground. As if he just fell. But how could a toy fall if it was laying on the ground to begin with? That's if it was laying on the ground the whole time. He begins to think that he is never truly alone in his room anymore and those beady toy eyes that face him in the night while he's sleeping aren't just facing him out of chance. They're watching him. They're looking. And he isn't alone. Nor was he ever alone. This is the tale of a boy who loses his mind at the thought that he has never been alone for his entire life and that the friends he made growing up may be a little more real than he first thought. A little too real. I'd rather see a Sid movie that shows how he reacts to finding out toys are alive. He's probably the only human who knows. Saving Private Ryan from Private Ryan's point of view. It's most just him slogging in the army until Captain Miller shows up. I want to know R2-D2's perspectives. Up until the new sequels, it can be argued that the entire story is from the perspective of R2 and C3PO. At least one of them is present for most of the time each of the major plot lines throughout each of the movies. And R2 never gets memory wiped. He knows the whole freaking time that Vader is Luke's dad. What a bastard. That crazy guy from Bird Box who forced people's eyes open. Seriously, I want a story about what he actually saw and why he wanted people to see it so bad. They had an idea for the monster in mind and originally planned to reveal it, but it's probably best they didn't. If I recall correctly, it was basically a giant green baby. That's not what he saw though. He saw what they made him see and it was something so amazing it drove him mad. No, everyone sees the monsters, but people with mental illnesses are typically affected by the suicide part of the symptoms. That dude was insane before he saw the monsters, and then he was insane afterwards. He was just able to point his insanity at something afterwards.